Sketchbook, sketchbook. Here's my sketchbook. I can show it to you if you wanna have a look. Sketchbook, sketchbook. Here's my sketchbook. And now I will stop this song. It's me, Mark. You Joe. You might be one of the very lucky ones watching this live. Today we are back again with a sketchbook special. We will be with revisiting guests, if that's a word, Shane and John. Previously, we looked at some examples from their collections in solo form, and this time we are having them on together, battling it off with both of their collections at the same time. But I will not be talking to them alone because I will be joined, as always, by...
I really want to talk Joe with you. It's a real American Tim. American Tim.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers.
You've been under your desk since we spoke last week. So good to see you again.
That's always where I go when I stop recording. Talk about a comic book store or grocery shopping, but no, it's just right under this line. You see.
Okay, next up we got returning guest. It's
Jon Thurmond is coming on the show today with Best Be Behaved.
Welcome, John.
Love that theme song. It's great to be back.
Good to have you. We'll talk to you properly just in a second, but let's bring back our other guest for today. It's Shane.
Shane Simeck, who got the Joes in your sketchbook? How many? That's super.
Hello, Shane.
Great to be back. Hi, guys.
Good stuff. Did that jingle work for you?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Okay, excellent. I'm having a little bit of a glitch on my side, so that's all good. So, how is everybody today? And yeah, what's our situation going on with maybe some of our backdrops? I was just pointing out to Shane that I've sort of enhanced my backdrop with some red shadows, robo scullage, and John, you're not in your not regular location today. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are?
I can indeed. So I am actually in Louisville, Kentucky, visiting my father for the weekend, and I'm in his basement in his office, and I will move slightly so you can see there's some china here. He has been collecting longer than I've been alive, and this is just a small portion of the exhibit. When I was a kid, in our dining room, the formal dining room, we couldn't let our friends go in there. You know, he had all kinds of cabinets set up, and nobody could run in there and play or do anything. So yeah, it's quite different. And sadly, I don't have sketchbooks or art or anything with me, but I got plenty of butter dishes if you need them.
John, when you were a kid, did your family decidedly eat on any of the fine china or not?
Only at Thanksgiving and Christmas, like the big holidays, Mom would get the formal silver and some of the nice dishes out. Otherwise, nah.
And not dishwasher safe.
Not dishwasher safe. A lot of it's hand painted. In fact, fun fact, my sister married into the Picard family. No affiliation with the Star Trek folks, but Picard, who made china for the White House. And so my brother-in-law's grandmother was one of the folks that painted a lot of the china that the Picards issued at one time back, way back.
Speaking of dishwasher safe, we mostly talk about comics on this show, but it is also about toys. Lego, this is true, is dishwasher safe.
Top fact. Very good. Shane, what can you tell us about what's going on in your room today? There's an interesting thing just above your head. I can't make out what it is.
That is a Avengers framed piece from one of the craft stores. It was just cool, so I picked it up. On this side over here, I have a Captain America print from Ryan Meinerding, who runs the visual arts department for Marvel Studios. When I ran a comic book store, Ryan was a customer as a high school kid, coming in with his brother after school and on the weekends to buy comics. So he was in the area, and I was able to meet up with him and get some of my art of books signed and get that print from him. I have some Captain America stuff over there. On this side, I have some Snake Plissken, Escape from New York stuff. That is mostly compliments of my buddy Carl, who is no longer with us.
Shane, is that a vinyl album on that same side? I see something.
There's
circular.
two there. Yeah, there's that is a, I don't want to say it's a reissue because it's two albums. It's Escape from New York. Waxworks did it. They do a lot of like repros and new releases with fancy products. So the actual album is like a light bluish Statue of Liberty blue, I believe it is. And then the album cover itself has a lot of art. And then on the wall next to it, which you can't really see, is a repro Escape from New York album from, I don't know, the 80s that my buddy had in his collection.
These are soundtracks of the musical score, right?
Correct.
This isn't like a child's like story of the movie.
No, it is not a turning the page to see what happens next to Snake Plissken. No, that he'd have been thrilled with that. Under those is a Steve Epting sketch of Snake Plissken that Carl got at Heroes Con many years ago.
And we've got our first comment in of the day. To think that that Tim's comment has set people off a change of plans to their weekends. They're now putting all their Lego into the dishwasher. So
Badger
C7.
I'm imagining your laptop or a tablet is in your kitchen near your dishwasher, or perhaps you don't have a dishwasher and you're thinking of your closest friend or neighbor. But maybe those bags that you put delicates in for laundry washing, those sort of mesh bags. I imagine the smallest Lego pieces, right? You don't just dump them in your dishwasher because the filter on the bottom that catches bits of food. Anyway, let's talk about G.I. Joe.
Excellent. I've touted this as a sort of dueling collecting comics and an intense rivalry battle to the finish. One of you's got a sort of a net and some sort of tripod. The other may be I don't know, sword and shield or electro whip. I don't know. Choose your own weapons. I think, unfortunately, you're probably on friendlier terms than that. We're not going to see too much blood and gore today.
I think we should point out, Mark, and I think I mentioned this the first time we looked at one of my books. Shane is the reason I started collecting sketches. Way back on one of the old Joe boards, he would post his collection, and I was so blown away. And I was like, "Oh, this is great!" So he was one of the first people I reached out to start talking about, who to talk to and the sketchbook to get and all those kind of things. And then over the years, thankfully, we were able to meet and spend time together and hang out and kind of check out, what we were getting at shows. But no duels here. It's all love and team and friendship because he's the reason I got into it to begin with.
I see John and I splitting an appetizer more than I see us squaring off in combat.
Yes.
halfway between
just
those two
as exciting
analogies, is it a food fight?
Potentially.
Excellent. We've got Chris McLeod here in the mix as well. well. He's bringing a go. Let's talk about some G.I. Joe, Chris. Let's not worry about how and what we will be putting in our dishwashers from our Lego collection today.
I think clearly there's some fan interest in us talking about Creo at a future episode if G.I. Joe and Lego are showing up so much in this G.I. Joe podcast.
Okay, maybe specifically Creo in dishwasher focused. So what we've got is I've got two sets of slides queued up. One with images, one with Jon's collection. So we sort of take ping-ponging between the two and taking a look. And the order is probably somewhat randomized. So probably Shane and Jon just press to the next piece that will be popping up. Let's start first one from Shane's collection. Here it is. If I click the button, it will be there.
Start by saying I didn't purchase this. This was a surprise gift from a friend. This was from my buddy Travis, who attended a convention, and Robert Atkins was there, and he decided to get this sketch to torment me because he knows I'm a big fan of the heroes of whatever genre I'm in, much more so than the villains. So he decided to get a sketch of me as Cobra Commander. And my understanding is he had to talk Robert into that. Robert was not excited to do it. But you can't tell. Robert went all in, including himself and Shannon, both in the sketch.
Was Shannon at that show as well, or is it just part of the gag?
He was not. It was just Robert's. This is how Robert envisioned it.
But an incredibly accurate portrayal of Shannon at a convention.
Yeah, I mean, I would believe that when I would believe that when Shane is walking around, he's partial to blue clothing. I mean, look at the walls behind him right now on our live feed. Also, I like the idea that at least two of the regular Joe artists share some kind of nebulous studio space. You know, it's like Wildstorm Studios,
the G.I. Joe studio.
Like in La Jolla in the early 90s, you know, like Jim Lee's in the main office making phone calls, and then like 8 guys are outside drawing a bunch of Wildstorm books.
How amazing would that be, G.I. Joe Studios?
Excellent. It's a great piece. It's really nice when these things are so kind of so personalized and you know, unique to that they can only belong to one collection. So it's great.
Shane, do you have a particular feeling for hooded Cobra Commander, battle helmet Cobra Commander, battle armor Cobra Commander?
I'm good with all three. I don't even know that I have a real preference.
Okay.
They're all Cobra Commander, so I'm good. And I'm definitely a comics fan first. And he rotated through all those looks, so I had all the figures. I like all those looks, so no, I'm not a diehard for one specific Cobra Commander look.
Maybe next time your friend can surprise you with a drawing of you wearing the 91 costume or the 90 costume with the transparent red helmet. Then you don't even have to take it off to reveal who you are. No way, it was Shane the whole time under the transparent red plastic helmet.
So now I can't be a G.I. Joe. That's the worst part. Now I'm pigeonholed as Cobra Commander. I've never sold a used car.
Your head.
I've never been in that line of work.
Your own personal headcanon. You are Cobra Commander. Love it. Okay, should we flick across to Jon's first of the show?
Roadblock from Daryl Banks. Shane is a good friend of Daryl's. Got to be very familiar with a lot of his non-Joe work, the sketches that he had done for Shane over the years, and had an opportunity to meet Daryl at actually a show here in Louisville, the old Derby City Comic-Con many years ago. Was really liked what he had done for Shane over the years and said, "Hey man, would love to get you in the book." And he drop this beautiful piece in there. I love the workhorse in the background. That's just a nice touch. But yeah, I was really pleased with how this turned out.
The pencil marks made with the edge of the pencil behind everything, which forms this sort of nebulous, like non-existent background. It's like sort of weather, like sort of wind or dirt or a mountain, but also just sort of marks that create depth because it's something behind something else. It's something dark against the rest of the background, which is light. That's a fun visual trick that artists can throw in to make something look a little more active. I mostly know Daryl Banks from his Green Lantern run, which started with Emerald Twilight when Kyle Rayner shows up for the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong, the three of you. Did Daryl Banks, did he do any G.I. Joe during Reloaded, or am I just getting things mixed up?
He did some Reloaded issues.
Okay. So he does have a canonical connection to G.I. Joe.
He does. And he's a big fan.
I wonder if he's still into the monthly comics grind, because I'm happy to add yet another person to my list of people who could be drawing G.I. Joe if it were to go bi-weekly or weekly or 3 weekly series that are all competing for my dollars.
I would love to see Daryl on a G.I. Joe book. He is he's the nicest guy. He's a comic book fan. Like, as much as he's a professional, he's been doing shows forever. He gets just a kick out of meeting all the creators that he grew up idolizing and reading their comics. Like I said, he's a G.I. Joe fan. One of the first G.I. Joe sketches I got from him was Cobra Commander, and he threw in a Weather Dominator joke with the sketch. I know recently he's buying the classified figures. I just turned him on to Gridiron Studios and some of their weapons, so now he's all about that. We exchange toy photos and that sort of thing. But yeah, Daryl's a great guy, and yeah, he's such an awesome fit for G.I. Joe.
Right, I have to go back and look at his issues now, refamiliarize myself. So
well, we'll be getting to them in the podcast in a matter of months, right?
Some point.
Right. Sooner than later, we're getting to Reloaded.
Cool. There's a lot of debut books there. Back to Jon's collection. I can see what looks like maybe 3 signatures on this one.
I think the third one is the city.
That's Shane's, by the way.
Yeah, this one's from mine. This is Brendan and Brian Frame. They are they're comic book artists out of, I think, the Philadelphia area. They did Knights of the Dinner Table for a while. They've done some stuff for Comic Buyer's Guide and Free Comic Book Day. We see them around a lot of conventions. I got this in 2017. It was the 30th anniversary of G.I. Joe, the animated movie. And so for my own little fun thing, my G.I. Joe sketches that year were all based around characters from that. So I got Duke from them, and I think they nailed that G.I. Joe animation look. And even though this isn't an exact scene out of that animated movie, I think it totally captures that opening sequence at the Statue of Liberty.
Fun to see Duke with a shotgun. I'm sure we once or twice have seen that, but I feel like we mostly don't see Duke with a shotgun.
Yeah, I would agree. I took it as a modified version of the toy gun, but yeah, it does have a shotgun look.
It's you sort of squint and it's close to the sort of the cartoon laser, but maybe it's a laser shotgun. Just saying there, that's what the modern 4-inch jetpack Duke head sculpt should have looked like. A little bit less angry and shouty, and a little bit more animated and in command, let's say.
This is a reference to that action figure where Duke comes with the jetpack and this strap and his mouth is wide open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to June's.
When you talk about your
a great take.
Yeah, you talk about your favorite Cobra Commander. This is probably my favorite Cobra Commander costume, and I'm disappointed it never went anywhere beyond what the handful of issues before he got his brains blown out by Chuckles. But this is by Christian Dabari. I met Christian at Heroes. He's primarily a horror artist, but I can't remember why we stopped at his table. We started talking, and I was looking at his work, and I showed him this. I showed him my book of samples or things to work from, and he saw this. He's like, "This is really cool." And then when I got it, while it's kind of maybe hard to tell here, that is a mushroom cloud in the reflection of the helmet, which just is in person looks so damn great. I was really, really pleased with this.
There is
zoom in on that a little bit.
Sometimes convention sketches are quite finished and are really commissions, and particularly if the artist finishes it in the hotel room or mails it to a month later. And sometimes the quality of line work, the sort of roughness or quickness of it, really does say sketch. And I'm seeing that in all the line work. So all these directional lines in the jacket and in the pants and in the shirt.
We had Robert Atkins and I had a conversation.
Yeah, great. I do love that design.
Yeah, we were having a conversation on Twitter about Crate Commander and the same idea that just never went anywhere. Thanks IDW. But like I said, the more I think about this series and this, I just love this look so much.
Yeah, both looks were cool, but they just never made a commitment. They introduced something cool and then never followed through.
Yeah, and there's still Cobra Troopers on the moon as far as we know.
How much food is on the moon? Because there may not be Cobra Troopers on the moon anymore.
There's one well-fed Cobra Trooper, and the others have gone.
I'm going to assume that in the Revolution era, since the Joes were hanging out with Transformers, someone transformed, flew to the moon, grabbed those Cobras, brought them back. So the fact that they were out of food, it's okay.
You probably gave it more thought than IDW did.
Yeah, I seem to remember that there was some callback to it quite late in the IDW run, but for the life of me, I can't remember what that actually was. But Chris is chiming in with his moon theories. They ended up making moon potatoes like Matt Damon did on Mars. Yeah.
Remind me.
It's one theory.
Do they write something on the moon?
Help, wasn't it?
Okay, because that's always made me think of. That's always made me think of Chairface Chippendale writing his name on the moon in The Tick. But as far as I don't remember what happens in the animated series, but in the original black and white comics, I think it's issue 6 or so, he gets as far as the first 3 letters of his name. And actually, for that matter, right, Cobra Commander draws himself into the moon in the 1985 episode Lasers in the Night. So there is a long tradition in G.I. Joe and comics in general of lunar graffiti, and that title's taken, folks. Watch for my short film in 2025.
I think I saw them open for Cold Slither, so
Okay, back over to one from Shane's collection.
So this is an original
tell
page.
Us about this one, Shane?
This is out of Special Missions Manhattan. It's page 4 by Jeremy Hahn, and that is all pencil work.
Wow. Such tight pencils.
Yeah.
That's the
Mark,
cover to the issue.
Can you zoom in on the art a little bit, show off those pencils?
Yep, we'll do this. Is a nice high res scan.
The image is
quite
cool, but the pencils are so tight.
Wow. In general, I am a fan of comic book art that is penciled and inked, if we're speaking traditional, right, as opposed to drawing in the computer where there's sort of a fuzzy line. But if a penciler has the time or the inclination and the skill, whether or not the deadline or the budget sort of necessitates it, if someone is penciling this tightly, I say, sure, go ahead and print from the pencils only.
Yeah, it's just so smooth and crisp.
I should add, because the other thing that's happening here is that Han is making a lot of decisions about line weight. So, you know, in the era of comics in the 40s and 50s and 60s, pencilers were sometimes doing full pencils and sometimes doing more like breakdowns, and the inkers were making a lot of decisions, right? There's this well-known John Buscema shop talk that he held at Marvel. There's an issue of the Comics Journal that has a transcript of it, and he says, you know, if you're penciling, just sort of get the information in there. The inker is going to be making the decisions about line weight and focus and depth, right? You are like staging everything. And if you think of modern comics artists who draw really tight pencils, they tend to sort of put all of the information in there, or most of the information in there for inkers. And this is one of those examples, but because there is no inker here, it doesn't feel like Han is doing sort of more than he needs to, or that the inker is sort of then just a hired gun to sort of like finish the final step.
Yeah, he's still leaving in the X's here to fill in black. There's probably a technical term for that. Tim, is there? Do you know?
I have never known one. An X means fill in with black. BWS means black with stars. But presumably the color artist, you know, gets the scan, and Han has either done it himself in Photoshop, or the color artist or the color artist's assistant, perhaps then does it. Right? You open up Photoshop and you open up levels or curves and you change the contrast, or you like manually fill in those places where you have to actually then do a little bit of sort of quote digital inking. Sorry, Shane, did I cut you off before?
No, you're good.
I have not read this issue. Who are the two characters in the back?
Mercer is in the far back, and then CoverGirl's behind Lowlight.
Cool.
Yep. It's cool. I look forward to getting to this issue when we get to it. So there on the credits, you might be able to make out it's just Jeremy Horn is, I think, credited as the artist, and then Dave Bryant, colorist, and yeah, the barrel of Lowlight's gun there is now finished in black. So that would have been, I guess, the colorist completing that, coloring in black instead of inking, I suppose.
This is before you said this was an interior page. I thought, oh, as a sketch, this is unusual because the camera is only like 3 inches off the ground and it's looking up. This is not any kind of traditional camera angle that an artist is going to default to, for a convention sketch or a commission. But in terms of a storytelling drawing, right, it's like emphasizing that low light is also down, and that the Joes are looking past us at something interesting or important.
Yeah, it's a very dramatic angle, very movie scene.
Yeah, cinematic. Back to John's next one, and what have we got now? Completely different style.
Completely different. This is Scarlet by Jerry the Franchise Gaylord, and I got to know Jerry years and years ago. He had a studio with his wife, Penelope, who goes by Ping Ping, and Brian Turner goes by Flash. They were based out of Maryland for a long time. And so I used to see them at all kinds of shows. And then they have since all of them moved to California and in LA. I know Brian and Jerry have been working on animation. They worked on a Wizard of Oz cartoon. I think Brian's working on Turtles now, maybe on the latest Turtles show. Ping Ping did a little golden book for, I think, Miss Marvel, maybe Captain Marvel, one of the Captain or Miss, I can't remember, and I apologize. But yeah, I was at a show without my sketchbook that I didn't have for over a year with an artist who shall go unnamed. But I was talking to Jerry, and he had several prints of 80s characters, one of them being Joe's. And so he proceeded to take an 11 by 17 piece off of his board and knock this beauty out for me. I love the action. I love the pose, and it's very anime, cartoony, in your face. I really like it a lot.
There's a feeling that I get from
absolutely, and he doesn't moonlight as a wrestler with that nickname.
No, I don't believe so.
There's a phenomenon that I see in a lot of work from people who work in the animation industry, people who cartoon, who exaggerate and who draw a lot more with curves and with curved gestural lines, sort of representing like a pose or a line of action, the gesture, like the spine of a character. And there are a handful of comics artists out there who I wish, as well as they draw sort of technical and detail and anatomy, I wish that they would exaggerate more. And I sometimes think of a certain comic book artist, and I think, I wish that this person would take a caricature class, or wish this person would take a figure drawing class from like an animation teacher, as opposed to a figure drawing class that's traditional. And I see so much. It's not just the proportions here, like, oh, Scarlett's hand and weapon are bigger because they're closer to the camera. And it's not just the sort of amount of detail, like, oh, they're flat areas of color. It looks like it would be animation, or like a stylistic tick, like, oh, her eyes are big. That looks like animation or anime. It's the exaggeration of her spine and the force of her pose, which is so lively. And I think there are many comics artists who could benefit from a dose of this.
John, I feel like I don't know this one. Like I haven't seen it before.
Well, like I said, it was it's 11 by 17, and so it's one of a handful of pieces that I didn't have in the sketchbook, thanks to the artist that shall go unnamed, that kept my book for a year, never did the commission, and that was 13 years ago now, going on 12 or 13, something like that. Incredibly too long.
Well, this is very cool.
Okay.
This is a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I like it a lot. And I have that same show, Flash, who was in the studio with him. He did a really fun beachhead, also 11 by 17, who's in this crazy pose. Looks like he's running like an anime with both hands down to his side and kind of charging towards you like a bull. It's a lot of fun too.
Oh, back over to Shane.
Nice.
Again, totally different.
Yeah, so this is Todd Knock. Obviously Lady J. This is one that he did for fun. He did a couple. He did, I think, Lady J, Zartan, and Cobra Commander at one point, just as like warm up for fun. He said he had been watching the old G.I. Joe cartoons in the studio while he was working, and he got the bug to draw a bunch of the characters. And as soon as he posted this, I reached out to him to see if it was available and snatched it up. But it just, for being, I don't know, it has that modern comics look, but it still looks exactly like the feel of the old cartoon. I love everything about this. And Lady J is one of my favorite Joes, so I couldn't pass it up. But the Cobra Commander and Zartan he did were phenomenal also. They were all fantastic pieces.
Are the colors, is that marker or is that like brush, like watercolor?
Yeah, it's more like brush,
Okay.
especially the background section.
Yeah. Todd Knock is
I'll
one
put
of
in
those. He's one of those artists who, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when he was doing superhero comics for Image and for DC, I suspected that he might be a G.I. Joe fan, and he's one of those artists who I thought, I bet one day this guy may do a G.I. Joe cover or interiors if the stars sort of align. And I thought he might be a G.I. Joe fan because he was working at Rob Liefeld's Extreme Studios, and Liefeld was a G.I. Joe fan, and you got the sense that some of the other guys were definitely G.I. Joe fans. I remember when Todd Knock published that Wild Guard miniseries about 15 years ago, which is like a reality show competition, like American Idol for superheroes. Like he'd already done a lot of Young Justice, and then he did this creator-owned thing. And as I recall, the colors in that miniseries are all flat, so it's sort of not the like flashiest of superhero books. And I remember looking at that and thinking, yes, I'd like this guy to draw G.I. Joe, because there's something so, modern and like post Todd McFarlane, post Jim Lee, post Rob Liefeld about his stuff, and yet he has good fundamentals. And it's not sort of like the style doesn't take over, like sometimes with McFarlane, the style takes over. And certainly with Liefeld, I sort of only see style.
This is from 2020. So kind of during the pandemic era, Todd was doing, work slowed down for all the comic guys, but Todd did a lot of YouTube videos at that time. And a lot of them were very tutorial based. And even if he wasn't doing it to be a tutorial, he's very good at walking the audience through what he's doing, why he's doing it. I feel like he's like the Bob Ross of comic book artists. Just he would do a Post-it note sketch or something like this, or a sketch cover one session and then color it the next session. It was really fun and interesting just to hear the process that he was going through and the thoughts associated with it.
I have never seen this. This is absolutely gorgeous. One of the reasons we would never be dueling is that many years ago, my son Jacob was a huge fan of Todd's, and we were at Heroes. Shane was kind enough to introduce Jacob to Todd at dinner one night, and Jacob was 9 or 10. He was over the moon excited. And the next morning, at that time, Todd was taking commission, like kind of walk-ups, whoever was first in line got the commission, and Shane was first in line. But we got in a little bit later, and Shane was kind enough to tell everybody in line, hey, this kid was in front of me. So Jacob got a really nice bazooka bust shot from Todd, and he was just probably his favorite piece from that convention. So, like I said, we'd never be dueling, but again, this is beautiful. I really like this a lot.
This is framed. Oh, excellent. He's doing something really interesting with the sort of the lines that he's using as well, that sort of, from a distance, your initial take might be, it's sort of colored, but actually the lines, each of the lines is a dark version of the interior color. So, the color of Lady J's, top is a dark green, and the outline of her hair is a dark kind of brown, and so there's actually very, very little black on this drawing at all, or black inking. That there's just some on the gun that she's holding, on her eyelashes, and on the sort of the tips of the spears. It's very striking.
I can't believe the detail he went into, like on the background elements. Like you've got Lady G plastic, and you're putting in a background, which is cool. But just that's a lot of tiny detail just for a fun, I'm getting this out of my system piece. And those other ones, you guys will have to go back and look at the Cobra Commander and the Zartan he did, because they're every bit as good as this.
Cool. I might do a search in the background and see if I can pop those up at the end or something. So back over to John's collection. Need to forward one.
So this is this was the second piece that I got from Dean Kotz. I think we shared my Televiper piece from him last time, where the Televipers have come in and there's dead soldiers everywhere, and there's an image on the screen of Stalker, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes. But I think the world of Dean, and I think he's very creative, thoughtful. Again, I just kind of gave him a couple references, and he came back with this. I love the mines, the fish, the shark. He's one that talks a lot about, he doesn't really think about the backgrounds, but they do so much to build the story. And yeah, I can't speak highly enough of Dean. I just think his work is great. I'd love to see him on a Joe book, because he certainly, I think he is a bit of a fan, but he's done a lot of Joe pieces for me and for other people I know, and I love him. Absolutely.
I love that piece. It's such a super piece.
Mark, can you zoom in on the bottom right? I know I'm supposed to be interested in the figure.
Yep, give me a sec.
But what's really striking to me is the sort of improvisational lines that make up like stone and fish and like clamshells and sort of stuff, like you see it sort of like disassociate before your very eyes, and then you zoom back out and it's like, oh yeah, that's like underwater background stuff. I get it. Like that's what you'd see there. I really like those 3 or 4 or 5 clams, rocks, whatever they are, directly above the signature.
I don't know if that's coral, but
coral.
It's got
Thank
that.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have to stay on the bottom right anymore. Go back
I was
to
getting distracted looking at some Todd Newak art, actually.
I also appreciate seeing Torpedo underwater when his full costume is completely justified, and I want to see him in his costume on the beach, on a school bus, like in a blimp, piloting the Sky Striker, because I want to see their costumes, but I admit that when he's not underwater, his full gear doesn't make as much sense.
Flippers in the Sky Striker are a little uncalled for.
But as a pilot in a plane, you'd have some kind of breathing apparatus. So he's got that going.
I can't remember the name of it, but back in one of the very earliest issues, he was in that government mint building,
Treasury.
I can't remember, like a treasury building, yeah, and in full flippers. So.
And I think he took out a trooper with his spear gun, if I recall, didn't he? Yeah.
Nice. It's a way to go.
What do you remember what show, John, this is from?
This is from Baltimore many years ago. Dean is out of New York, and one of those guys I just kind of stumbled upon in Artist Alley, which has always been a joy. I went by his table, and he had a Black Knight sketch on the table that was like, this is amazing. And I started flipping through his work, and hey man, you ever done any Joe? And so the first piece I had from him, I think the first piece I got was Shipwreck, and he's on a boat it's the boat from Raiders from Raiders, basically. And it's got, all stylistically, it looks like the boat that Indy was on, but he's got his truncheon and poly. And then he did this, and I have a Cobra soldiers just kind of walking through, and there's death and destruction. And then I have the Televipers, he's big on death and destruction, which is okay with me. but I just, like I said, Dean is such a talent. And I have not seen Dean in several years, which is disappointing because I keep seeing his stuff that he posts on Twitter. It's just gorgeous. So want to get more for sure.
And let me see if I can get this up onto the screen as well. I've just pulled up the Zartan. Here we go, Zartan. You can see that. No, if I add it, that'll help.
There you go.
Oh, neat.
There we go.
Very cool.
So got all of these process on his Instagram pages as well. Cool.
Cool.
And there's also lots of nice process of the Lady J that we looked at as well, which is cool that you've got all of that sort of sitting behind your personal sketch. Cool. But instead of looking at some sketches that belong to other people, let's put something back in the stream that belongs to one of you two. So
oh, cool.
Here we go.
I love it.
So this was also in 2017. It was one of my pieces as a tribute to the 30th anniversary of G.I. Joe the movie. John, do you know who that is? Who did it?
It's Adam Withers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Comfort Love and Adam Withers are a husband and wife who self-published several different books. And I've known them since they were breaking in, I guess. And they did great con sketches. They put themselves out and advertised themselves very well. They try to have different price points for all different people. But I reached out to see if they were taking commissions and asked Adam to do this. I just asked for Mercer, and he decided to go with the Commando movie poster remake all on his own. But there are a couple of people who really embrace the use of the Copic markers, as you can tell, and they work those things like a fiddle. They play those things all day long.
Yeah, so there's, except for the red on the no Cobra circle symbol, this is only warm grays with a little bit of yellow or red in them, and only cool grays with a little bit of blue in them. And your mind might be playing a trick where you're like, no, his complexion, that's like Caucasian, that's like pink or brown, or like no, in his hair I see like brown, that's a brown marker, Tim. And I will respond to you with Shane standing behind me. No, those are just gray markers that are warm or cool. And if you're curious, you can also get those same kinds of markers that are neutral, that don't have any bluish or reddish in them.
Yeah, I believe this was considered a black and white sketch as far as no color, but Adam made a point to say he had to put the red circle on the Cobra. He had to
I've always been a tiny bit disappointed that the animated movie goes out of its way in that close-up to show that anti-Cobra logo, and that somehow doesn't show up on the action figure, or it's not a sticker that you can apply. And the people making that scene of the movie were not coordinating in the right timeline with the toy people such that would have ever happened. But
isn't there a G.I. Joe?
I love this. Commando's my favorite Schwarzenegger movie. This is tremendous.
I was trying to remember, isn't there a G.I. Joe character with a Cobra symbol as a tattoo crossed out? Is that Mercer, or is that Mercer version 2? Maybe? I don't know. I might be completely Mandela affecting this. If anyone is in the comments and can back me up on this one, is there a G.I. Joe figure with a Cobra logo crossed out?
I think there's some adhesive. I think there's some stickers for some of the Joe planes where they have shot down Cobra planes. But so if you consider that a tattoo on an airplane,
guess
there's Shane. There's a little bit of whiteout or white paint for those highlights on.
Yeah, I think so.
Mercer's,
yeah,
on his nose and his lips and his jawline on the left side and his cheekbone.
Yeah, another magical tool of the artist is using whiteout to create instead of to white things out.
Yeah, when you zoom in, it's a nice big blob of white there, creating that sheen. Nice.
It occurs to me that Mercer has had so few appearances in animation and comics that there's probably a great multiple more of commission art of him than, like Mercer has this whole life out there for fans on their walls or in their portfolios, much more than Hasbro's licensors have gotten around to making.
Well, and that's a problem for me because when I get these sketches, I like to provide reference because not every artist knows every character. But when there's not good reference, when they don't show up or they're just in a background or a headshot, it makes it hard to say, I want a waist up shot.
Yeah. Can we see the full thing again, Mark?
We do have the benefit of at least there being the toy existing and that being the ultimate model. So
toy package art. Yeah.
Worst comes to the worst. Worst. This little plastic guy, or like the toy package art is the character.
So help me out, guys. The black glove on Mercer's right arm, is that so that when he punches people it hurts more, or is that like Mutt, where it's so that a dog can bite it? Like what is that? Because there's so few Joes where they're not symmetrical. So when a Joe is asymmetrical, it stands out to me. So what is this glove wrist thing?
I always took it to his asymmetrical design or non-asymmetrical design to be just to show that he's rough and not traditional. And so I don't know the actual purpose. I just took the design to be he was trying to look more like a bad guy than a good guy. I guess to do more.
Black glove.
Never thought about Mercer's glove before, I have to be honest, till today.
Well, Vipers have some gauntlets.
I've got a short film coming out in 2026 called Mercer's Glove. John, don't steal my idea.
Coming out right after the other one, right?
Lunar Graffiti, 2025.
Lunar Graffiti.
Well, he's got a watch on his other hand, so that would get covered up if he had another big glove.
He kind of has a watch on his bicep.
Maybe it's a compass.
Okay, thank you.
What?
Cool.
Yeah. I was sort of flicking my eyes across between the design as he appears here versus the design on the figure, and sometimes you just sort of read all of these things into the figures because you can only do so much with 4 inches of plastic. There's a lot of stuff to kind of read between the lines. So that's, I guess, the part of the fun of having someone really go all in with the detail on a piece of art like this. Back to John. What have we got now?
We've talked about Tim Shin before. A big fan. Fortunate that Tim only lives maybe 15 minutes from me in Richmond. And when I first met Tim, it was at a show, and he had sketches and things out, but he had the G.I. Joe Collectors Club issue for Renegades, which had Roadblock, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet on the cover. Well, he drew those figures and they composited them for that cover. So Tim is a massive G.I. Joe fan, and somehow we got to talking one day about Renegades beyond the art that he had done for the magazine. And I said, hey man, like I really like the Zartan design. What do you think? And I love what Tim does. He will go out and do a prelim sketch on a piece of typing paper, just loose pencils, and he'll send you that and say, hey, is this what you think? Yes. And then this is what he proceeded to put in my sketchbook. So I was really, really happy with how this turned out. I really enjoyed the Renegade show, short of Ripcord becoming ectoplasm. I just really liked a lot of the thematic elements, and I like a lot of the designs in it too. I really want to get a Cobra soldier or trooper from that series. That's an awesome figure, and it's a great design. But yeah, I can't recommend Tim enough either. He's always taking commissions, always enjoys doing Joe stuff, and this was really, really happy with how this one turned out.
Excellent. Can you remind me, has Tim done more anything else beyond what you just mentioned in terms of actual official published G.I. Joe art? Because I've seen an awful lot of like, you know, commissions and sketches and all these kind of things from him. And
I don't believe so. You know, he does a lot of custom card art. In fact, there's just been a whole hullabaloo. Somebody had lifted his work and was selling it on eBay. Thankfully, he got in touch with them and they've taken it down. Yeah, it worked itself out. But you know, Tim has a background in, I believe he's done work for some of the other toy companies and things over the years, storyboards and what have you. But as far as I think official Joe stuff, not so much. Really, he's got been working on a graphic novel for some time, and before Neil Adams passed, he was doing a lot of the color work for Neil. So you see a lot of the commissions or things that are still floating around that Neil did. He was doing a lot of the coloring work on that.
I saw the custom package art that he did for like the LLRP, you know, Vietnam era characters that I think is either new or he's just recently shared on Facebook of like Stalker and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Yeah, it looks very cool. Any other comments on this one, or otherwise I could flick to the next? Tim, it looks like you're about.
Yeah, this is Renegades is I don't have Renegades. It's great. I don't have as much of a connection to it as some other versions of G.I. Joe, and even though at this point it's actually not at all new, it still feels really new and young to me. So to see any artists do a version of it is such a surprise. Like, oh, that's like that new thing. It's like, oh no, this has been around for 10 years. And so I'm sort of like rubbing my eyes to sort of place everyone, because again, I know Renegades, but not that well. And here's another example of warm and cool markers, and also a little bit of an unusual composition for a convention sketch or a commission, because it's the upper torsos of all of these characters and there's no background, and you know, there's a million ways to pose 4 people in a rectangle, but I feel like generally if you're getting a sort of a group shot, you might have characters a little bit more evenly lined up, or you know, like a band photo. So this is sort of unusual. This is striking in several ways.
Oh, back to Shane's, and I think brace yourself for this one because there's a lot of color here. So,
so it's my turn to give John credit that this is by Dan Govar, who John introduced me to. Although I do also have something from Tim Shin that John introduced me to. But this is Dan Govar. Dan's actually, he does phenomenal work. He's not a big superhero guy. And while he appreciates G.I. Joe, he's more of like a fantasy. He's big into dragons and that sort of thing. So when I give him stuff, I try not to give him straight up military characters or superheroes, somebody with a little bit more of a fantasy spin. So that's what I went with here. And clearly he embraced it. His use of colors and lighting is phenomenal. Every piece he does, he can explain it to you like a director explains a movie. Why he chose the colors he did, why he used the light source he did. He could really just do like a director's commentary on every piece that he produces. So it's really fun to talk to him. He gets into his art. I didn't even think about it at the time. I said I kind of went with the fantasy, Serpentor being a little more of a fantasy character, but I didn't even think about the fact that he's dressed as a snake, and Govar does a lot of dragon creatures. So,
Mark, do you have a lower third so we can see the artist's name spelled out?
I do not. I have not written one out for this. I'm afraid, Tim.
Shane, can you just spell the artist's name so we can get it in our heads?
Yeah. His last name is Govar, Govar.
Cool. So whereas a couple slides ago, we were talking about highlights as whiteout on top of gray marker, the highlights here are the white of the paper showing through. So this is paint technique. This is, I don't know if it's watercolor or gouache. I mean, if it's gouache, okay. I was going to say, if it's gouache, it's watered down to act like watercolor. So let's say it's watercolor. Watercolor is transparent and pretty unforgiving. You know, once you put something down, it's sort of hard to undo it. You have to sort of go over it or work around it. Yeah, all the highlights on all those bits of costume and this snake throne are just great. And you know, the snake, the green snake that's on Serpentor's shoulder, you can see where there's this, and it's happening elsewhere in the drawing, but you can see this suggestion where Govar is inking the scales sort of on the underside and the side to show where there's shadow, and then he stops inking them for the top, and then with the sort of medium green paint where he's filling in around, under, over the black shadows of those scales, he goes a little bit higher, and then on the top of this snake he just paints that lighter green color. So he's suggesting rather than drawing every single detail. And there are artists where I'd be really excited if they drew every single detail, every little bit of scale and clothing fold and, you know, wrinkle and bit on a gun. And then there are artists who will sort of do half of it and suggest the other half. And that can be really satisfying and like a little sort of magical.
And this is a convention sketch. This is this one Heroes Con.
What? How was he doing a lot of convention sketches that day, that weekend?
Yeah, he'll take on quite a few.
Did you pick it up? Did you pick it up there? Or did he mail it to you?
No, I picked it up there.
Wow.
I picked it up there. He's a big fan. If you follow him on social media, when you pick up your convention sketch, he takes a picture of you with your sketch, as well as just posting a photo of the sketch.
That's great.
Super nice guy.
I appreciate the red cape here because I don't think we've ever or often seen Serpentor with the red cape. The toy comes with the green cape. I think we lost ours, so we started using Dr. Mindbender's cape. And in the comic book, I forget what his basic cape is, but you know, he does have that shirtless look with the orange pants. And the red here, I like it because it starts to clash with all of the other colors that are happening in his costume. And then you have this sort of warm, like light maroon throne and the purple for the wall behind it. And you know, I think Mark was, you know, there's a lot of color in this next one. I like how sort of busy, and I don't see this as a negative, I say this as a positive, how much clashing there's happening here, because Serpentor's costume is both elegant and also incredibly garish. And I like an artist who can embrace that, but then has the sort of technical chops to pull it off. You know, like there's all this purple in the background, and yet the purple is also happening in the shadows on either side of Serpentor's head, around his eyes, in the shadow cast by his cowl, in his fingers. This is great.
The Shane will probably about to say this, or might have thought it, but the red of the cloak appears in Order of Battle profile for Serpentor. So I wonder whether that's what was shared as reference for the character for this one.
Thank you for the fact check.
Yeah, I may have. I'm not sure. I've changed my reference a lot, so I don't know.
It strikes me that I can see a kind of a lot of like the feel of Mobius in this one. I don't know if that's just me, but in terms of the look of the face, particularly, there's it looks like there's a lot of detail in the sort of in the face, but when you sort of look at it more closely, there's very little inked line work. It's mostly in the suggestion of color and interesting use of purples, particularly for the shade that is kind of landing on his face, and the shade from the fangs of the hood sort of coming down and sort of accentuating his cheek line. It's great. I love this. John, can you remind us what did you get from Daniel Govar?
Yeah, so a little background with Dan. Dan used to live in the Maryland area, and I was going to a convention, was way back when I used DeviantArt a lot to find artists. I found Dan on DeviantArt, and he had done it was a reimagining of Aquaman, and it was just this stunning, with the scales. And I looked at it and I thought, I know this isn't G.I. Joe, but this guy will draw G.I. Joe really well. I don't know why. Just whatever I saw at that time, I was like, I've got to get something from this guy. So when I met him at the show, I went up and introduced myself and said, hey, I was checking your stuff out on Deviant. Really, really love this Aquaman you did. You ever done anything G.I. Joe? And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but he's like, I used to have some G.I. Joe figures sitting on my computer. So he had like a Firefly. I think he said he had Firefly, a couple, 2 or 3 figures. So he went through my reference book, and he did. The first piece I got from him was Snow Job. And originally it was just black and white. And then a little while later, he dropped some color into it. And it's one of my favorites. It's where he's on one knee adjusting his ski, and there's some breath coming out in the elements. And then after that, he did a snow serpent for me. He's got something I haven't seen Dan in a while. We have talked about the next thing he wants to do, which I think he will do just a tremendous job of. But it's fun because I got Shane connected with him, and I know he's done non-Joe stuff for Shane. But I guess Shane, he's probably done maybe 2 dozen Joe pieces now over the years for people.
Yeah,
he's done quite a few. I know there was an Airtight. Our friend Eric Grubb, I know he's done probably several Dusty and CoverGirl pieces for him. So yeah,
I have Flash from him also.
Yeah. That's right. I remember that piece.
The hand, Serpentor's hand that's resting is it's I think because his hand is forward and not splayed. Am I seeing this right? The sort of the gauntlet, the snake gauntlet completely covers his fingers, such that if he were to pull the sort of cuffs back, or push his arm out through the sleeve, his fingers would sort of come out of the mouth of that snake. What an unusual take on that costume. I also wanted to say, in terms of this piece, since we were focusing on sort of color and line, the pose is great, like regal but also relaxed, and there's nothing straight up and down about this. You can see this center line on Serpentor's chest, which is a serpentine curve, actually, because it like an S curve, right? It goes to the right, and then it goes to the left, and there's a lot of sort of twist to his pose, to his neck, to his spine, even though it's subtle and not sort of the main part of the main idea of the drawing. This is great.
If you get a chance to meet Dan, you can also score points with him if you take him Little Debbie Star Crunches. He's a big fan. So usually when I see him, I try to take a 6-pack of those to him. I know he appreciates that on the con circuit.
Right. I love that. And let's head back over to something from John's collection. What have we got next?
Recondo from Kevin Mellon. I think I shared Storm Shadow last time that I'd gotten from Kevin. Kevin's another artist I found online. He's been working on Archer for quite some. He worked on Archer, and I think he worked on the Hit Monkey cartoon that was on Hulu. I believe he was maybe the chief designer on that show. I don't recall exactly, but anyway, when I met Kevin, I'd seen a lot of his work, really dug it. He did this. I love the fingerprints in it. I know it's not quite Recondo. He doesn't carry two pistols necessarily. The tunic, it's a kind of a tunic, but I just love the feel of it.
Mark, can you zoom in? I want to look for some fingerprints. Is this between the two guns on the holster, John?
Yeah, I think there's there, and then
it's all over the place a little bit, like on the holster. Yeah.
Is the fact that he's got two pistols and no chopping device, is that from your art direction, or perhaps a lack of art direction?
I gave him the reference, probably probably the package art, and maybe one other image of Recondo. I tend to be very I'm non-committal, man. I want people to however the spirit moves them. Right. I will say I'd like this costume as opposed to that, but as far as I don't get too far into I want him doing this or doing that. This was all from his mind.
If Recondo is walking through a path that's already been cleared, he wouldn't need his machete, and he might need both pistols.
I think sometimes with the artists, it's what they're comfortable with. They're not always comfortable drawing guns or weapons or certain kinds of guns or weapons. So if he's comfortable drawing handguns, he might have just been like, I'm giving him two handguns. He's a soldier. He's going to go fight with two guns.
Two guns are cool. Let's give him two guns. Yeah. It's nice. It's it's clearly a sort of a con sketch, and I still can't believe that last one was done along with other things at the same time. But yeah, it's nice. He's sort of done the extra, and with all of the like suggestiveness of the kind of those blacks on the sort of foliage behind him and stuff, and it's more than just a single figure. It's also bringing a little bit of character from the background.
Yeah, this is a little bit like the torpedo drawing, where underwater we have this loose suggestion of coral and rocks and fish and clamshells, and here we have these are definitely fronds and maybe some grasses, but it sort of becomes this sort of like this sort of catch-all, like jungle stuff that is both sort of accurate and like invented and I think improvised. Cool.
I wonder, as I'm about to flick to the next one, I wonder if potentially me or my brother had a hand in this one coming about. I'll be interested to find out the origins of this as we flick over to a Viper from, I think, Brian Kelly.
Correct. This is from last year, and this is from a Patreon. One of my friends supported him on Patreon and got a really nice sketch, and suggested that I do the same. So I logged on and followed him, and then after 6 months, you can give him a character suggestion. And I just gave him Cobra Viper because I knew he's expressed several times that he's a G.I. Joe fan, and he's done a little bit of G.I. Joe work. And I just said Cobra Viper, and then I was blown away when I saw this. Definitely exceeded all expectations.
Is this the Ryan Kelly who drew a little bit of the Paul Allure G.I. Joe World on Fire series?
It is.
Okay.
And I asked him if he had any preference. I gave him a couple characters, and he was like, nope, whatever you want. I'm like, all right, Cobra Viper. And he did not shy away from it.
I like the repetition of color where the reds and the blues of the Viper himself are the sky. Sort of the red pink of the sky is the sort of pink of the complexion, and the blue in the sky with a little bit of ink wash in it like dirty water or black ink is the blue of the Viper. So the background agrees with the foreground characters. And an up angle where the camera is low and we are looking. Well, I guess technically it's the same thing, but rather than we're looking up at the Viper's looking down at us,
hunting us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this could be like package
Right,
art
and-
almost.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Ryan Kelly's work, and one of the reasons I wondered whether I might have in part had a hand in this is that my brother was quite an early adopter of Ryan's Patreon, and he got a commission of it was a recreation of one of the G.I. Joe covers with Lady J and Zorana scrapping. If you remember that.
Oh,
cover,
I saw that. When I was trying to decide what to get, I was looking through some of his stuff, and I did see that. Yes.
And sort of after he'd got that, we noticed that there was a pattern of quite a few people asking for G.I. Joe sketches. So I think it became known that he was someone really into G.I. Joe and could, and if asked for it, would really knock it out of the park. And I've seen a few G.I. Joe related commissions from him now, and they're all pretty incredible. So some of those commissions where you're like, this is probably more special than should just be for me. It should be a cover, it should be package art or something, it should be out there in the world. So that's great. And I think this next one is John's last pick. So here we go. We're going out on a high.
Look, I make no secret that I love Boy George Snake Eyes. I believe I am the preeminent Boy George Snake Eyes art collector in our community because I've never seen anybody else with any. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I've not seen it. I have, my first piece that I got of this was from Matt Slay, who shared it the last time that we shared my book. And Shannon was doing a series of, I guess, funsy pieces. He does a lot of warm-ups and things. He did this. He gifted it to me because I think he knows I'm probably the only person that would be really happy to display it. But it's Shannon's humor. It's got that 80s vibe with the geometrics behind it. What else do you say? I mean, it's one of my favorites. And like I said, I would love to meet anyone and everyone else that's got not only Boy George Snake Eyes art. I do have a Boy George Snake Eyes custom classified figure that was gifted to me. So like I said, I'm going to stake claim to being the preeminent collector of this particular Snake Eyes until somebody tells me otherwise.
John, have you met James Kavanaugh Jr., who cosplayed as Boy George Snake Eyes at JoeCon 10 years ago?
Sadly, I've never met James. I know him by reputation.
I have a photo. I have a photo. So as amazing as this pose is, John, thank you for pointing out the background. I love the pose. I love the background even more because it looks like 1980s broadcast design. It looks like you would see a logo for a TV show or like a lemonade candy or something in front of these lines and triangles and this grid. And, like some of them would be sliding left to right. And, it's like it's the logo for the show or the like chocolate milk or the like t-shirt company or the like California adventure video game, whatever it is, comes down in front of this. And I'm perfectly happy for convention sketches to have no backgrounds, to have just a little bit of background, to have, a fun improvised sort of suggestive background, whether it's sort of tech stuff or like clouds or like some dirt. But because there's so much like graphic design that is going into this drawing, not just like drawing of figure and detail, pose and like hair and clothing. I love this background.
John, I don't know if you ever considered having a sketch digitally colored, but I would love to see this one with some bright 80s colors on it.
Yes, I have not. I haven't done anything with it since I got it, but I think that's a great idea. It would be a lot of fun to see.
I'm going to go a step
and
further.
Neon yellow. Yeah.
I'm going to go a step further, John. May I suggest finding an old school airbrush artist who does surfboards and vans and have them color the original?
I don't know. You know, I'm such a fan of the black and white stuff.
I mean, you scan.
It's hard for me.
You scan the black and white.
True,
you have a version of it forever, but you know what? Also, this some company that makes T-shirts should license this drawing. Should get permission from the owner of the art and the artist, and then pay Hasbro for the legal ability to turn this into a T-shirt. John, I don't know if you feel like sharing this image with sort of the whole world beyond our little live stream, but I would like to see this on Torsos.
It is funny you say that. So Shannon designed my podcast logo for the HR Social Hour show that I used to do. And I knew we had arrived when it was lifted and on a bootleg site somewhere. My podcast logo T-shirt, which I have on TeePublic to donate money to charity, that when it was lifted on some site overseas, I told Shannon we have arrived. We were definitely big time then.
It sounds like, John, you're giving me permission to bootleg this for this T-shirt company that none of you know about yet.
Yeah. Well, that goes with the band, with the short films you're making and whatever else. You know.
John, I would never
definitely
guess
see this on a
guys, but I'm glad that you do. This is a lot of fun.
I don't know why, man. It just always struck me, and this has been a running joke for years. Because when I started the sketchbook, I've always liked the idea of doing kind of the one-offs and the uniques. And I can remember approaching Robert to do this, Robert Atkins, and he refused. He's like, I won't do it. And I still don't understand why, but maybe he just didn't think it as funny as I do, but he has refused. And so that was when Matt Slay agreed to do it, part of the reason was he was the first artist I had talked to that was interested and actually excited to make it happen.
John, is there a way that you could not trick, but sort of sideways convince an artist who's not interested in doing Snake Eyes as Boy George? Maybe if it was something like, hey, wonderful G.I. Joe convention artist, would you draw me wearing Snake Eyes' Boy George costume, right? But can you put the helmet on me?
Put the mask on me. Yeah.
It's not really Snake Eyes.
Yeah,
well, John, you have the custom. You can give them the custom and say, hey, can you do a sketch of this?
True. It's true. Yeah, like I said, I've never understood the aversion because let's face it, it's funny as hell. It's just a funny. I'm looking forward. I would like to think if Super 7 is making some of these one-offs with the reaction line, I could totally see this one happening, and I would be excited even at the cost point for those 4-inch figures. I would happily purchase that one, but.
I would be surprised if they didn't get to it eventually.
Well, they've made him a Cobra, in the Cobra soldier outfit from that show, and I think, I don't think they've done anything. It would be nice to see this with Shipwreck in his jacket and glasses and what have you, in the saxophone, and maybe the two of them with Spark. Well, I don't know.
I think you're describing a 5-pack. I think them and Satin and who's the bad guy who's not Major Blood, but if you squint, you think he's Major Blood.
Well, you could put Timber in the top hat or in the hat and glasses, and
the box could sort of look like that. Is it a van that they're dancing in front of?
Mm-hmm.
Or Satin's dressing room?
Yeah.
John, if Super 7 does this figure, I will buy you one.
Well, you can blame me for getting you into the classified line, right? Yeah. So I'll take that.
I'm telling you right now, if that happens, just expect one from me. I will buy you one.
Fair enough. I appreciate that.
Something that I always liked about this costume and this gag in this scene in this episode is that in the same way that you sort of account for this time travel episode of Star Trek where Kirk and Spock go back, City on the Edge of Forever, to the 1960s, and they need to explain why Spock has these weird ears. So they just put a hat on him, right? It's like, whew, taken care of, right? It's like you hide it with a costume. Like Snake Eyes walking around wherever it is, Chicago, New York City, even in the 80s when people are like dressed up cool or weird in a city, like Snake Eyes' costume, if we sort of imagine there aren't grenades on it, is going to attract attention. And as a kid, I found it sort of funny and incongruous. It's like, okay, so he's got this crazy wig and this hat and this dress on. He's still got this weird mask, but I guess that's enough. It's like, I guess if I was watching a music video on MTV in 1985 and I saw someone like this dancing in the background, I'd be like, yeah.
I was going to add a little while ago before we went slightly off course that it's great to see Shannon inking himself as well, and clearly he took a little bit of extra time on this that isn't always possible on the grind of trying to get the monthly book out, and it's got a real polish to it that's very appealing, and great to see sort of the less sort of unhurried kind of work from Shannon as well. So yeah, it looks great, and a lot of detail in it. Nice. Shall we skip over to Shane's? We'll call a fever dream, in which he realized that he had to include this piece in this presentation. So it was a late edition, and I think a worthy way to close out the show. So here it is.
So this is from.
What can you tell us about this one, Shane?
2021. Hero Initiative was doing some promotions where X amount of people could make a donation, and you would get a sketch from a specific artist and maybe like an hour Zoom video where they would talk to you just in general, answer some questions like a Q&A or whatever. And I did one with Todd Knock, and then Klaus Janson came up, and I thought, I've never really talked to him. He signed some books for me at some shows, but I've never really chatted with him. And so I gave him Snake Eyes as my sketch, but I have to say really that that Zoom conference call we had, that was amazing. I felt like I was an art student learning so much, and I'm not an art student at all. I can barely draw, but the things he talked about and explained and expressed and the way he did it, it's very clear that he is an instructor and he is very good at what he does, not just creating the art, but passing that knowledge on to other artists. So that was a remarkable experience. I loved it. He was confused why I wanted Snake Eyes. It was not popular choice, obviously. Even like it came up, it was addressed in the call, and they asked him, have you done a lot of G.I. Joe? And he's like, not really that I can recall. I'm like, well, you worked on 2 covers from the early run. But it's a really cool sketch, and it's Klaus Janson drawn Snake Eyes, so I have no complaints.
How big is this?
It's like 5 by 7-ish. They've got established artboard.
And it says on the bottom left, it's got a Hero Initiative logo and some information helping comic creators in need. Hero Initiative. Janson is known in comics for, he's mostly known as an inker, but he's also penciled and inked, a lot of stuff. He's drawn penciled and inked a lot of Punisher and Batman. He's also a colorist. He also colored his run on Punisher and colored some of his issues of Daredevil. I think when he was drawing it after Miller left, and I really like his colors. I've seen him talk at a panel at a convention once, and he has been, I think, to like 2 generations of students, yes, he's a comics illustrator, but very much he's a teacher at one of the New York schools. So you make a nice point, Shane, about how he is an instructor and how he can talk about this stuff or interact with people.
And he's really good at it.
This is such a fun and weird take on Snake Eyes because his visor is sort of flattened out as if it's part of the mask or part of the helmet rather than an external piece, and the pouches around his torso have like such heft that it sort of looks like Snake Eyes and sort of looks like some other character from another book, which maybe adds to this feeling of like, this is not a character who this artist is affiliated with, even though, yes, he inked the cover to 21. And then did he ink 22 or did he pencil and ink 22? Maybe.
I think he penciled and inked, but that could be wrong.
Maybe if it's, I can't grab my copy of After Action Report Volume 1 because it's 3 feet beyond my hand, but that's a place I could go. This is, I say this in a fun way. This sort of doesn't look like Klaus Janson. Because when I think of how he draws, I often think of his faces, and here's a character where we don't have a traditional face, and because some of the gear and the sword sort of like, maybe I've got too much of Daredevil and Batman, or like even Captain America because he did that Punisher Captain America miniseries, but I would not have guessed Klaus Janson had there not been a signature on this. So this is really fun and weird, but good weird, not like, what have you done?
No, that's my take on it too.
Did you give him any reference or suggest anything about Snake Eyes?
No, there was no way to provide reference in those situations. I always say that I can provide reference if they want it, but yeah, there was no.
So you paid request. And you made the request. G.I. Joe Snake Eyes.
Yep.
Cool.
Right.
I own a Klaus Janson original, and it's, his inking is so intense, like sort of purposeful, and yet also I don't want to say messy or scratchy, like those don't do it justice, and sort of loose doesn't also quite do it justice, but I'll come up with the word next week, but there's sort of no mistaking his inking.
Do you have a page, Tim?
I have his cover to Batman Gothic.
Okay.
Not this edition, which is actually just sitting behind me. Not the new cover from a couple years ago. There's glare on this because it's still shrink wrapped. It's a cover to like the 1993 soft cover where Batman is, you're looking at him straight on, and he's kneeling on a ledge and it's raining. And in fact, I have a letter printed in an issue of Black Panther in 2006, the 2005 series. Janson inked the first 2 or 3 arcs, and the second arc, this is when Reginald Hudlin was writing the book. The second arc is penciled by Scott Eaton, and Janson inks it. And I have a letter about their first issue, and I like point out that the writing's great, and the penciling's great, and the inking's great, and the color's great. And I think I used the term Janson's trademark scratchiness, which I meant as a compliment. And I reread that issue recently, and I got to that letter, and I thought, I hope that comes across as a compliment.
I always think of his inks as being rough, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Not like he doesn't know what he's doing, clearly.
There's a good word.
Not smooth, polished.
Textured. But
yeah.
textured can start to imply like with a lot of sort of finesse and purpose, and he's being much more. Again, it's this sort of words are. It's hard to pick the right word.
Yeah, not random, but
the kind of like an intended sort of abstracted roughness. You know, those kind of concepts sort of coming together. So it's, you know, it's meant to look a little bit messy and a little bit rough, but there's a purposefulness to it and a design to it, rather than it being a kind of an unintended kind of consequence, or what have you.
Shane and Jon, do you have your sketchbooks out with artists? Do you have requests or commissions in progress? Are you heading to conventions soon? Shane?
I am going to a convention in a few weeks where Tim Seeley and Jeff Isherwood are guests. So I have hopes that I can come back with something from them. I have a couple pieces out or set up also, but I've got a project I started around, I think, 2019, where I'm trying to get the original 13 Joes by all people who worked on the property in the earlier days, which is harder to do because a lot of them are no longer here. And I have a lot of Joe art by Joe artists, but it's proving a challenge. It started off really smooth and started off strong, and I'm down to the last couple, and it's proving challenging. Everybody is assigned a character, but they're not all rolling.
What's the show you're going to with Seeley and Isherwood?
Fantasticon in Toledo, Ohio.
Did you watch our amazing interview with Tim Seeley? Jon, do you have sketchbooks out with artists, commissions in process? Are you heading to a convention or convention soon?
I do not have my sketchbook out. I was never comfortable after my bad experience where I had it out. It was out for a year and nothing ever happened. And I've kind of scaled back over the last, because I haven't been going to as many conventions. I am going to the GalaxyCon in Richmond in late March. Antonio Fuso is going to be there, and I've never met him. So I love Cobra. There's like, that is, I thank Mike Costa all the time on Twitter how much I love that book. And I was really fortunate many years ago. We were gifted one of the Cobra shoulder bags that were out at the time. And my son and I collected autographs over the years. We probably have 30 Joe creators associated. And like Shane said, unfortunately, many of them are no longer with us. So I want to get Fuso autographed in the bag, and I want to see what he's doing as far as work, because I would like to get something from him if it's feasible. I think that'd be fun.
Jon, I wish you the best with that. He was supposed to be a guest at GalaxyCon Columbus in December, along with Stephen Kurth and Al Milgram, and they all canceled. So hopefully
that's yeah. You know, I don't know. I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. But
yeah, hopefully it works out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was this is old news, but for people who lost track of Antonio Fuso's art after G.I. Joe, he did a mini-series. He drew a mini-series for Black Mask 4 years ago called Survival Fetish, and the cover to issue #1 is really cool because it's really stark, and it sort of has it's a guy jumping, and the background's only red, and it sort of looks like he's jumping between smokestacks, and then you realize that those are barrels of firearms. I remember reading the first issue, thought it was okay, but I really like his art, and I don't know that he would ever come back to G.I. Joe or be asked back to G.I. Joe, but he sure made an impression with.
It was such a dramatic difference from the majority of it. Did not look like anything else to me, like anything else we'd seen. And again, Cobra was such a phenomenal story. I am disappointed that we never got more Mike Costa on something Joe related, but that's how it works. And you know, that's what IDW did to us. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It has become a little more challenging over the years. You know, sadly, and Shane knows far better than I, and you probably do too as well, Tim. You know, many years ago, the price was a little more consumer friendly. And now, instead of getting, say, 3 or 4 pieces at a show, I may be able to get 1 or 2. And that hurts a little bit, because that's always been part of the fun, is if you're going to get maybe 2 sketches a day, so you end up 5 or 6 over the weekend. Like I said, now if you can afford 1 or maybe 2, and it's that same amount of outlay, I respect and appreciate that artists can do it, and bless them. I say go for it, and I'm glad to see they're working, but it may not be for me.
And there's this feeling, there would be no way to prove this. It's not like you'd have a badge, but I don't know, John, if you want to say this, but if I were at a convention nowadays getting sketches, I would want to say, oh no, your prices are so high, you don't understand. I was getting convention sketches from you guys when they were really cheap. Like, I'm one of the early good guys, and I'm not going to flip this on eBay. Like, this is really just for me and my friend or my kid. So like, can we talk this down? It's like, no, it's their weekend, and they're not at home drawing a book.
I have utmost respect for these creators. And if they can get it, more power to them. They may have priced me out of the market, and that's okay. And look, you still get a hometown discount, for those that you've known for a long time. And I respect that too. That I get what you paid 10 years ago is not what you paid 10 years later. However, the escalation is quite striking.
It's gotten steep.
Yeah. Just to say a headshot starts at $200 in many cases, that is a lot. That is a lot of money. I'm not faulting people for getting it. However, that $200 may not go to that individual. I may go somewhere else.
I wish I could call in all the markers for the creators who said, I appreciate your support. I will never charge you more than this price, even when my prices go up. I wish that was a thing.
Shane, you got to get that in writing. I went to a small
from someone.
I went to a small convention. I went to MoCA Fest, Museum of Comic Book and Cartoon Art Fest in New York in like 2006, and there was a great writer artist who had just been published by one of the smaller publishers, and she had to leave her table to get lunch or something, and I'd been waiting 15 minutes, and she said, sorry, I can't sign your book or draw a sketch for you. But she drew a little sort of coin with her head on it, and she said her name owes Tim one something, like convention something. And I sort of thought a year or 2 later I would go back to another convention and redeem it and get a sketch in my book or something that she had done. And a couple more years later, she got to be a big deal. And now I just have this cool sort of original coupon from her, and that's better.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's I had a cool thing that it was behind me. It's over there. Actually, it's within reach.
Mark's gonna grab my other copy of Batman Gothic. I don't know how it got to his place.
It was the last sketch I got was at MCM London. I don't think I got any big sketches, but Declan Shalvey was there with his new book Old Dog, and I went up to his desk and he went, "It's Mark, isn't it? How are you doing?" I was like, "What? How on earth do you know my name? We've spoken before at conventions, but you've met you must meet thousands of people every single year. So what a guy, be able to actually just remember my name."
Were you wearing?
I wasn't wearing
Joe
like
hat?
this or. But yeah, I got his new book, and he did me a little. I can't remember how it's pronounced. Khonshu or whatever. The Moon Knight sort of bird skull thing from his run.
Khonshu,
great
yes.
book. So that was, I think that was all the original art that I came away from my last con. But that was an unusual one for me. My next one is that I'm going to for sure is NICE convention, NICE in the UK later, which I think is very early September. And that's a very comic centric one, particularly about comic art, and literally it's a room full of comics creators. So it's sort of a very different kind of con to the massive wrestlers over there and film stars over there and stormtrooper from the left over there. It's so it's a very good one for being able to find art. So I've got my fingers crossed that might be able to get something interesting Joe wise from that one. Shane, you made a bit of a cryptic comment. I think it stands for Northants International Comic Expo. I think it's in Bedford, I want to say, in sort of just not too far north of London. So it's not too difficult a one to get to. Shane, you with a cryptic comment on the post that I made earlier on today that I've posted some art for sale. So I'm wondering whether you have something in the wings there. We can leave it unsaid, or you can elaborate if you want.
I paid a little bit, and I got a prelim with my name on it. So I've never dealt with them before. Hopefully, there's no issues there.
Sorry, is this a G.I. Joe page or a cover? What is this?
It's Rob Liefeld from the Snake Eye series.
Oh wow, cool.
Posted some pages and some page pencil prelims on 8x10 paper. Cool. And I got one of the prelims that has a couple nice clean shots of Snake Eyes on it.
Had you been thinking you wanted something from that series? Is it from a certain issue? Is there something about those prelims that grabbed you, or was like you just wanted something from it?
It seemed affordable for Rob Liefeld, and it was a price range I was comfortable with, and it was a nice page. It's got like 2 nice shots of Snake Eyes on it, so I figured, yeah, that's good. If it would have been something with background characters or Snake Eyes was off in the background, I wouldn't have worried about it. It would have been no big deal, but there was a couple nice options, I thought, and I got a good one. So, yeah, add it to my collection. I have no Rob Liefeld.
About the same prices that he'd draw one of his Deadpool balloon head signatures at a convention. So I think in terms of a value comparator, it's pretty good.
And it's Snake Eyes, so I like way more than Deadpool, so it's even better.
And let's face it, Deadpool's 20% Snake Eyes, right?
Definitely.
I mean, I think the actual math is.
And last time
Deadpool is 50% Spider-Man and 50% Deathstroke. But I think knowing that Liefeld is a G.I. Joe fan and that there are some well-known swipes, I think the math really ends up being 45%, and then 10% Snake Eyes.
Yeah, Snake Eyes is in that equation for sure.
And I think last time we spoke, we talked about our grails that we'd not yet completed, and one of yours, Shane, was the Mike Zeck. And I think you filled that gap election now, right?
I did, yeah. In this past September, or 2 Septembers ago now, he was at Cincinnati Comic-Con, and I was camped out at his table when he got there. Prior to him arriving, John Beatty was set up next to him and said, "Are you trying to get a sketch?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And John Beatty laughed and said, "Good luck. He's not drawing." And I said, "That is fine." I've met Mike several times before, and he has always very graciously turned me down, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to do so again. And Mr. Zeck showed up, and we chit-chatted a little bit, and I said, is there any way? And he said, "Well, what do you want?" And I've tried contacting him before, and he basically alluded that the only way he was going to do anything was if it was Snake Eyes, which I'm fine with. So I said, "Well, could I get like a head sketch or something of Snake Eyes?" And he's like, I kind of do these remarks that are smaller. Sometimes they're a little bit more elaborate. They're just like a small area on a page. And I said, I would be fine with that. I would really like to get something. And he said, "Leave me your name and number, and I'm not promising you anything." Okay, that's fair. And as we walked by back and forth throughout the day, saw that he was penciling a Snake Eye sketch that turned into Head and Shoulders. It's got a little bit of gear. I wouldn't say it was a bust by any means, but marketed it up, and he said, yeah, this, I don't know, I kind of got into it. It was more than I planned on doing, but I hope you're happy. And yeah, I'm very happy that, one, I didn't know that it would ever happen.
Maybe we can see it in our 3rd episode featuring Shane and Jon battling it out in a food fight.
I posted it on the Facebook page back when I got it, but yeah. Well, I'm hoping that if I can complete this original 13 Joes by people who were involved in the property, I'd like to show those off. I can get that wrapped up. Down to 3 more.
Actually, I'll if it's all right with you, I can share that Snake Eyes while we're talking about it.
Yes.
But Mark, our 3rd episode with Shane and Jon.
There's always more.
Well, I have to say, I'm living vicariously through Shane these days when it comes to commissions. He's always sending me pics and let me know what's going on, and I do appreciate that, because I again, he's the reason I got into it to begin with. But I love seeing what he continues to do.
Ooh. So this is
extra
Shane,
bonus content.
Is this is on a piece of paper? This is on a...
Yeah, this is on, I think it's 11 by 14.
And it's Bristol, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay, it's like standard comic book drawing paper.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Oh, Mike Zeck's spotting of black ink, and his musculature, and his cool. Oh man.
Just the little bit of gear on the strap. I can stare at that all day long.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely
that
more than
balance.
I hoped for, so I'm very happy.
That's great. Thanks for joining us and sharing, gentlemen.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us back.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of the wider Talking Joe family and friends. Great to have you. Yeah, just not just involved in when you're coming on here, but sort of all of the comments that you give us on on Facebook, Twitter, on these lives. It's great to have you involved. I don't think I've pre-prepared any banners, but if you want to, there's some links in the description below to your CAF gallery, Shane, and to Jon, to your website. So do you want to just give that a shout out? What could people find there if they visit those links?
All of my art is posted on Comic Art Fans under my name, Shane Simeck. I have several galleries. It's not all G.I. Joe. There's a lot of bigger art, but pretty much all of the collection is posted there.
I haven't updated my CAF in a long time. Best way to get a hold of me anymore is on Twitter, and that's Jon_Thurmond. And I always take part in Jovember. So if you just search hashtag Jovember, you'll probably see the vast majority of my art. And shout out to G.I. Joe Niederlander for asking to take my tweets previous to put into a blog on his site. I appreciate and respect the fact that he asked, could he do that before he did it.
Stuff. And Tim, where can people find you when you are not talking to me about G.I. Joe things?
Video essays on TV and film at our YouTube page, Atomic Abe Productions. My brick and mortar comic book store is Hub Comics in Somerville, Massachusetts. That's right next to Boston, and it's bordering Boston. And I write about G.I. Joe at arealamericanbook.com.
And if you are new to Talking Joe, you could visit talkingjoe.co.uk, which is the website that has the links to all of the places you can find us, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all sorts, and including our Patreon page. And a big thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers who get early access and some exclusives too. So I think that is pretty much us done, which leaves us only to say, and you're welcome to all join in with this, that
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
It was just Tim again. Oh well. Laters. Thanks, guys.